I honestly don't know where to start with this mess, but I need to get this off my chest. 3 years ago, my entire world got flipped upside down, and now my family is acting like I'm the villain for not wanting to play happy family with the sister who literally stole my fiance. I'm 28 female, and my sister Margaret is 25 female. Growing up, she was always the golden child, prettier, more outgoing, better at everything, according to our parents. 4 years ago, I met Jake at a coffee shop. We dated for about a year before he proposed, and I was over the moon. Margaret seemed happy for me too, always asking about wedding plans and offering help as my maid of honor. During our 8-month engagement, Margaret started coming around more often. She dropped by our apartment unannounced, text Jake directly about wedding stuff, and touch his arm when talking to him. I brushed it off because I trusted both of them completely. The truth came out when I came home early from work feeling sick and found them making out on my couch. When they saw me, Jake started stammering excuses, but Margaret just sat there looking guilty, but not really sorry. I completely lost it, threw my engagement ring at Jake, and told them both to get out of my life. Margaret finally spoke up and said they'd been seeing each other for 3 months while I was planning our wedding. The worst part wasn't the betrayal itself, it was my family's response. Instead of being furious with Margaret, they seemed more concerned about her feelings. My mom kept saying, "These things happen," and "you can't help who you fall in love with." Within a week, Jake had moved in with Margaret. Within a month, they were posting a couple of photos like some great love story instead of two people who destroyed an engagement. I tried maintaining some relationship with my family for 6 months, but every gathering centered around Margaret and Jake. My parents welcomed Jake to family dinners like nothing had happened. The final straw came at Thanksgiving when my mom set places for them like any normal couple. When I objected, she told me I was being selfish and needed to let Margaret be happy. I left that dinner and went no contact. I blocked Margaret and Jake on social media, changed my phone number, and told my parents that if they wanted a relationship with me, it couldn't involve Margaret. They thought I was being dramatic and said I'd come around eventually. For the past 3 years, I've been living my best life. I moved to a new city 2 hours away, got a better job, made new friends, and started dating someone amazing. I've been in therapy, working through the family trauma, and I've genuinely never been happier. Then last week, my mom called, crying. She told me Jake had cheated on Margaret with some girl from work and that Margaret was devastated. Apparently, he'd been having an affair for months, and when confronted, he told Margaret he never really loved her and only got with her because she was available. Part of me felt vindicated because karma had caught up, but mostly I felt nothing. Margaret wasn't my problem anymore. But then my mom kept talking. She said Margaret was in a dark place and kept mentioning how she missed me and wanted my advice on moving on after being betrayed. My mom said the whole family thinks it would be good for both of us if I came home and reconnected with Margaret. She said this could be a chance for us to be sisters again, like the old times, and that I was being cruel by holding on to grudges from so long ago. I was shocked by the audacity. I told my mom that Margaret made her choice 3 years ago when she decided my fiance was more important than our relationship. I said that just because Margaret was experiencing consequences didn't mean I owed her comfort and advice. My mom got upset and said I was being heartless, that families should stick together no matter what. The conversation ended with my mom saying she'd call back in a few days and that the whole family was hoping I'd put the past behind us. Since then, I've been getting texts from various family members about forgiveness and giving Margaret another chance. What really gets me is they're acting like I'm the one who needs to make an effort here. They keep talking about Margaret needing me because I've been through the same thing, but I haven't. I was betrayed by two people I trusted, while Margaret was betrayed by someone she knew was capable of betrayal. Nobody acknowledges that Margaret spent 3 years enjoying her relationship while I dealt with the aftermath alone. Nobody mentions that she never tried to apologize. Now that her fairy tale has fallen apart, suddenly everyone remembers I exist and might have valuable insights to offer. So I guess I'm asking, am I being heartless for refusing to reach out to Margaret? Should I consider giving her a chance to make things right? Or am I justified in maintaining my boundaries? And how do I handle my family's pressure without completely cutting them off? Update 1. It's been 3 days since I posted and things have escalated. I called my mom back and gave her my final answer. I would not be reaching out to Margaret, and I didn't want updates about her situation. I explained that I'd spent 3 years healing and wasn't going to jeopardize my peace of mind to comfort someone who never showed remorse. My mom didn't take this well. She started crying and said I was being cruel and that Margaret was in such a bad place. She was worried about her mental health. When I pointed out Margaret hadn't worried about my mental health 3 years ago, my mom said that was different because Margaret was young and in love. I hung up when my mom started saying I was heartless and unforgiving. This morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and dozens of texts from family members. My mom had called everyone, and now they're all weighing in. Messages ranged from guilt-tripping to straight up angry. My aunt called me selfish. My uncle said Margaret was just a kid and I should be mature now. The worst message came from my dad. He's usually level-headed, so I thought he'd be reasonable. Instead, he sent a long text saying he was disappointed in me and never thought he raised a daughter who could be so cold to her sister in her time of need. Around noon, I got a call from Margaret herself. She was crying, saying Jake had destroyed her and she needed her big sister. She talked about making mistakes and learning from them, wanting a chance to make things right. But here's the thing. She didn't actually apologize. She never said she was sorry for what she did to me. She kept focusing on her pain and how much she needed me. When I pointed this out, she got defensive and said she thought I'd be understanding since I knew how it felt to be betrayed. When I told her that wasn't going to happen, she got angry and said I was being petty and holding grudges. That's when it hit me. Margaret still doesn't think she did anything that bad. She's not sorry for what she did. She's just sorry it didn't work out. The call ended with Margaret saying she couldn't believe her sister would abandon her when she needed her most. I told my mom that Margaret had contacted me directly and that the conversation only confirmed my decision. When my mom got upset again, I said if the family continued pressuring me about Margaret, I'd go completely no contact with all of them. Since then, the calls have mostly stopped, but I know this isn't over. I'm exhausted by this drama, but I know I made the right decision. Update 2. 3 days passed peacefully until yesterday afternoon when my boss called me into her office. She said there was a woman in the lobby claiming to be my sister with a family emergency. Thinking something had happened to my parents, I rushed down to find Margaret sitting there looking terrible, thin, with dark circles like she hadn't slept in weeks. She jumped up crying, saying she was sorry to bother me at work, but didn't know what else to do. When I asked how she knew where I worked, she said she'd hired a private investigator because the family was worried about me. I was furious at this violation of privacy. She said she'd driven 2 hours to see me face to face and make me understand how sorry she was. Once we were outside, she broke down completely, telling me how Jake had been cheating with multiple women and told her she was pathetic when she confronted him. He even said she now knew how I felt. Margaret kept saying she finally understood what she'd put me through and felt terrible. But then she said she needed me to forgive her because she couldn't handle the guilt on top of everything else. She said she was in such a dark place that she needed her big sister's support. I told her that her apology was still centered on what she needed from me rather than what she owed me. Showing up at my workplace uninvited and hiring a PI wasn't the behavior of someone who respected boundaries. Margaret got defensive, saying she wouldn't have had to go to extremes if I'd just given her a chance. Even in her supposed moment of remorse, she was making this about everyone else's feelings rather than taking responsibility. I told her I appreciated her coming, but my decision hadn't changed. Trust broken the way she'd broken it couldn't be repaired with just an apology. Margaret got angry, saying I was being stubborn and cruel, and she couldn't believe I'd hold on to anger over something that happened when she was young and stupid. The conversation ended with Margaret saying she hoped I'd regret this decision someday. She drove away, and I went home emotionally drained to find angry voicemails from my parents saying I'd been cruel to Margaret and refused to listen to her apology. I'm at the point where I think I need to go completely no contact with my entire family. They will never see Margaret's actions as more than a mistake and will never stop pressuring me to forgive her for family peace. Update 3. Something happened this morning that changed everything. I woke up to dozens of missed calls and messages saying I needed to call home immediately because something had happened to Margaret. My mom was hysterical, telling me Margaret was in the hospital after taking sleeping pills. She said Margaret left a note saying she couldn't handle losing both Jake and me. Mom kept crying and saying this was all my fault. I felt terrible and started questioning everything. Had I been too harsh? I started packing to drive home, but my boyfriend stopped me. He said Margaret's mental health wasn't my responsibility, and this could be manipulation. He suggested I call the hospital directly. I spoke to a nurse who confirmed Margaret had been brought in but was stable and moved out of intensive care. When I asked about severity, the nurse seemed confused and said it appeared more like a cry for help than a serious attempt. I called Jake, never thinking I'd do that. He actually laughed when he heard my voice. He said Margaret had been blowing up his phone, begging him back, showing up at his work when he blocked her number. She'd been making threats about hurting herself if he didn't give her another chance. Then he said Margaret had seemed almost excited about tracking me down at work, talking about having a plan to make the family see how cruel I was being to her. When I asked if he thought Margaret's attempt was real, he said Margaret was desperate and would do anything for attention, but he didn't think she actually wanted to die. She'd made similar threats during their breakup, followed by demands for him to come back. I realized that Margaret showing up at work, the timing of her hospital visit, and my family's immediate blame all felt too convenient. It seemed orchestrated to force me back into her life by making me feel responsible. I decided not to go home. I called my mom and said I was glad Margaret was okay, but wouldn't be resuming contact. My mom started screaming that I was heartless and Margaret could have died because of me. I finally lost it and told my mom I was done being blamed for Margaret's choices and wouldn't be manipulated into a relationship I didn't want. I said if Margaret was truly suicidal, she needed professional help, not her estranged sister. My mom said horrible things then, that she wished Margaret had been her only daughter, that I destroyed the family, and that I was dead to her if I didn't fix this. I told her she'd made her choice to prioritize Margaret 3 years ago, and I was finally accepting that reality. I hung up and blocked everyone's numbers. It's been 2 days. I haven't heard anything about Margaret's condition, which makes me think she's fine. And this was exactly what I suspected. I've decided to go completely no contact with my entire family, and I'm looking into legal options to prevent Margaret from showing up at my workplace again. I know some might think I'm heartless, but I've realized I can't save Margaret from herself, and I can't sacrifice my well-being trying to. Sometimes Loving yourself means walking away from people who refuse to respect your boundaries, even if they're family. I never thought I'd be posting here, but this situation has really been eating me up, and I'm getting so much pressure from my family right now that I honestly don't know if I'm being too harsh. Maybe you guys can tell me. I, 32, female, have been married to my husband, 34, male, for 7 years. We've always wanted kids and started trying soon after we got married. Unfortunately, it's been a long road full of heartache. Multiple miscarriages, fertility treatments that didn't work, and endless doctor's visits. About a year and a half ago, my doctor finally told us that IVF would probably be our best option going forward. Now, IVF is expensive, and while we'd been saving, we still weren't close to affording a full cycle, not to mention the meds, which are also pricey. Around that time, my mom, 56 female, told me that she would help. She said she knew how much we'd been through and that she wanted to support us in becoming parents. She promised us $10,000 towards the costs. This was a huge deal for us. It meant that we could stop waiting and start the process sooner rather than putting it off for years. We met with a clinic, started all the testing and prep, and were finally feeling hopeful after so much disappointment. For some background, my parents divorced when I was a teenager. My mom remarried when I was 17. Her new husband came with a daughter, my stepsister, Jenna, 29, female. Jenna and I have always been civil but not close. Different personalities, different lives. My mom, however, treats her as her own daughter. I never minded that. I figured it was good that Jenna had a caring stepmom. Fast forward to about 10 months ago. We were getting ready to start our IVF cycle when my mom called me out of the blue and told me she couldn't give us the money after all. I was shocked and asked why. That's when she unloaded a whole speech about how having a baby should happen naturally, that IVF is unnatural and an IVF baby wouldn't be a real one, and that maybe the fact we couldn't get pregnant without help was a sign from God. It felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I couldn't believe that after everything we'd shared with her, after her seeing us cry and struggle for years, she would say something like that. It wasn't even about the money at that point. It was that she clearly didn't believe my future baby would be worthy of being her grandchild. Then I found out from my brother that she had given the money she promised us to Jenna instead. Turns out Jenna was pregnant unexpectedly by her long-term boyfriend, and they had quickly planned a wedding. My mom decided that helping Jenna with the wedding and baby stuff was more important, and that Jenna's pregnancy was natural and meant to be. I can't explain how that made me feel. I didn't say anything to my mom beyond a short text, telling her I needed some space. I stopped visiting for a while and only replied to texts when I had to. She never apologized, just acted like it wasn't a big deal. Fast forward again to 4 months ago. Life is funny sometimes after all those years of infertility and heartbreak. When we just started talking about taking out loans for IVF, I found out I was pregnant, naturally. It was a complete shock, and I didn't tell anyone for weeks because I was so terrified of miscarrying again. But now I'm 22 weeks along, and things are going really well. My doctors say everything looks perfect. I'm finally starting to believe that this might really happen for us. I hadn't planned on telling my mom right away because of everything that happened, but my brother let it slip during a family get-together. Suddenly, my mom was all over me, calling constantly, texting, acting so excited about her grandbaby, and talking about how she wanted to be there for every part of my pregnancy. It felt fake, like she just switched gears now that I was having a natural pregnancy. Still, I didn't want to rock the boat, so I played along for a bit, kept her updated occasionally, but didn't invite her to appointments or anything. Then something terrible happened. Jenna lost her baby at around 18 weeks. I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone. And despite everything, I reached out privately to express my condolences. I knew how hard pregnancy loss is, and I truly felt for her. But here's where things got even weirder. The minute Jenna's loss happened, my mom completely latched onto me and my pregnancy. It was like she needed a replacement grandchild. She started sending me baby clothes, emailing me grandma quotes, telling extended family that thank God this baby is coming to heal us. It was like she forgot everything she said about IVF babies not being real, about how my struggles were unnatural. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I told her, nicely but firmly, that I didn't want her treating my baby as some kind of replacement grandchild. I told her that her words from before still hurt me deeply, and that I wasn't going to pretend everything was fine just because I happened to conceive naturally this time. I also said that while I wasn't going to keep her from being a grandma, I wasn't comfortable with her suddenly forcing herself into every part of my pregnancy when she'd made it clear what she really thought about me becoming a mom. Well, that went over about as badly as you'd expect. My mom started sobbing, saying I was heartless and punishing her for one mistake, that I was robbing her of a relationship with her grandchild, that I was making this all about me when we should be healing as family. Then she started calling my aunts and cousins to complain. Now I'm getting texts from people telling me I should move past it and be the bigger person, and that grandma love is precious. One cousin even said I was being selfish and cruel after everything my mom has been through with Jenna's loss. But here's the thing, I'm still hurt. I can't just forget that she called IVF babies unnatural and fake. I can't forget how quickly she dropped me when Jenna's pregnancy came along. Now that Jenna lost the baby, I'm supposed to just hand over access to my child so my mom can fill the hole. It doesn't sit right with me. Also, my mom still hasn't really apologized, not for her words and not for giving away the IVF money and not for anything. She's just trying to bulldoze her way into my life again now that I have something she wants. I don't know. Part of me wonders if I'm being too bitter. I know grief does weird things to people, and I know losing a grandchild she was excited about must have hurt her. I'm not trying to punish her. I just don't want my child to be her second choice or her consolation prize. That's not fair to my baby. So right now I'm keeping some distance. I told her I needed space to enjoy my pregnancy without added stress. I'm not saying she can't ever see the baby, but I don't want her acting like we're suddenly best friends or like she's owed unlimited access when she made it clear before that my motherhood wasn't real to her. My husband says I'm being reasonable, but a lot of my family is saying otherwise. Now I'm second guessing everything. So Reddit, AITA for telling my mom I don't want my baby to be her replacement grandchild after everything she said and did. Update 1. Thank you to everyone who commented. Reading your thoughts really helped me feel less crazy about the situation. A lot has happened since I posted, and I think some of you will find this update interesting. So after I told my mom I needed space, she kept pushing. I muted her messages and stopped answering her calls, thinking she'd cool down. Well, instead of backing off, she decided to show up uninvited to my baby shower. Yes, the baby shower my best friend threw for me, which was small, private, and by invite only, because I didn't want stress. Somehow my mom found out about it through one of my cousins, who apparently didn't get the memo to stop giving her updates, and decided to surprise me. She walked in with a giant grandma-to-be sash, bags of gifts, and acting like nothing had ever happened. She was loud, hugging people, telling everyone how proud she was, taking selfies, completely hijacking the vibe of the party. You could feel how awkward it got, especially since many of my friends knew what had happened. My husband was furious. But here's the kicker. After about 20 minutes of this, Jenna shows up too. Yep, my stepsister, the one who lost her baby a couple of months ago, came in with my mom. Clearly, they had planned this. Jenna was super cold towards me, but started crying dramatically, telling people she was trying to be strong and how hard it was to see all this baby stuff when she'd lost hers. Now, I have sympathy for what she went through. I really do. But this wasn't the time or place for theatrics. It was my shower, my baby, and it became clear real fast that my mom had brought her on purpose, thinking this would guilt trip me into healing the family and forgiving her. Finally, my best friend had enough and politely asked them both to leave. My mom went full-on victim mode in front of everyone, sobbing about how I was cruel and turning her future grandbaby against her. Jenna joined in, telling people I was heartless. They ended up storming out, leaving a trail of gossip behind them. My inbox exploded afterward with family drama, half saying I should have been more understanding, the other half telling me I was right to stand my ground. At this point, I'm honestly done. I told my mom I will not tolerate more stunts like that, and that her access to me and my baby after birth will depend entirely on her actions moving forward. My husband and I are even talking about moving further away after the baby's born just for some peace. I can't believe this is my life right now. Thanks again, Reddit. I'll update if the circus continues. Update 2. Hey, back again sooner than expected. I thought things couldn't get messier after the baby shower drama, but oh boy, I was wrong. A few days after the shower fiasco, my mom started her next stunt. She posted a long, emotional Facebook post. It included baby bump pictures she had stolen from my sister-in-law's Instagram because I haven't posted any public photos. A caption about how she was finally going to be a grandma after all this heartbreak. And the worst part, she tagged me and Jenna together. The post went on about two strong mothers and healing after loss, like Jenna and I were on some kind of joint emotional journey. She even ended it with, "Our little angel will bring this family back together." I was livid. Not only was she ignoring my boundaries, but she dragged my pregnancy and Jenna's loss into a public sympathy fest without my consent. My phone blew up with messages from relatives, old neighbors, random friends of my mom's, people I hadn't heard from in years, congratulating me or commenting how wonderful it was that Jenna and I were supporting each other. To be clear, I haven't spoken to Jenna since the shower disaster. I messaged my mom, furious, and telling her to take the post down, and she refused, said it was her right as a proud grandma. I told her if she didn't remove it, I'd start setting serious legal boundaries, and she called me vicious and accused me of kicking her when she's grieving. Meanwhile, my husband wasn't playing around. He had our lawyer draft a formal cease and desist letter regarding unauthorized use of our names, photos, and pregnancy details on social media. Once my mom got served with that, then the tantrum really started. She blew up the family group chat, paragraphs of, "How could my own daughter do this to me?" After everything I'd been through, denying my only joy and breaking poor Jenna's heart again. Jenna chimed in too, making herself out to be a victim, saying I was cruel for not including her in this pregnancy and that I was tearing the family apart. At this point, even some relatives who were previously neutral started messaging me privately, saying my mom was acting unhinged. A few apologized for pressuring me before and said now they understood why I was keeping my distance. For now, the Facebook post is finally down, but I've made it clear to my mom, one more stunt and she will not be meeting this baby, period. And for those asking, yes, my husband and I are now looking into moving, possibly before the birth. I want my baby's first weeks to be peaceful, not another chapter of this circus. We'll update again when the drama continues. Update 3. The circus did continue, and this time it was the final straw for me. About 2 weeks after my last update, my mom apparently found out that we were seriously looking at moving to a new city a few hours away, closer to my husband's family, who have been nothing but supportive. She did not take it well. She showed up at my house, uninvited, pounding on the door, crying loudly enough for the neighbors to hear. I was 34 weeks pregnant at this point. My husband wasn't home and I was genuinely scared. I refused to open the door and ended up calling the police for a welfare check to get her to leave. The next day, she sent an email, yes, an email, dramatic subject line and all, basically disowning me, said I had destroyed the family, that she was cutting me out of her will, LOL, and that I was forbidding her from loving her grandchild out of spite. Honestly, it felt freeing. We moved a week ago. I'm 38 weeks now. The baby can arrive any day, and I finally feel peaceful. No more unannounced visits and no more public drama. My husband and I are ready to start our life as a little family, just us, and those who truly love and respect us. So, for those wondering, no, my mom won't be meeting my baby, at least not anytime soon. And I no longer feel guilty about that. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.